are three types of narratives, three basic types of narratives. The first one, the most common one, is the protagonist. We used to call him a hero and a villain, but as you will see, that doesn't always work that way. The protagonist is the one the story is about. That's the one who carries the action forward. And the protagonist usually struggles against obstacles of some sort. And through this process, the protagonist is changed. That's the type 1 narrative. A type 2 narrative is where there's a protagonist and there's an antagonist. There are two characters that are contesting. And again, that we used to call these a hero and a villain, but so you have this protagonist and this antagonist, and they struggle, and at the end of the story, which may not be the end of their lives, but the end of the story, one or both of them are changed. Sometimes it's one, sometimes it's the protagonist, sometimes the antagonist, sometimes they both are changed. It happens. The rarer type of story in literature and in movies, and we don't tell these stories a lot, is the type 3 narrative. And in the type 3 narrative, there's a protagonist and an antagonist, and neither one is changed. And in Daniel 6, that is very obvious, because Daniel is not changed, and the people who want him dead are not changed. They end up dead, but their attitudes are not changed. King Darius is changed. And in that way, to a very large degree, it's the same thing here. It isn't, on the surface, it appears that Nebuchadnezzar is the antagonist. But in fact, he's not the one who drives the action. I bring this forward because you and I, my friend, my brother, my sister, you and I are involved in this type 3 narrative every day. Because people are looking at us, whether we know it or not, to see how Christians behave. First of all, your children, your neighbors, the people you interact with on a regular basis, and you claim to be a Christian, those people see how you act. Now, none of us are perfect. That's not the point. The point is that we're involved in these type 3 narratives. And that by living faithfully, even though we may live in what appears to be obscurity and in frustration, we may not appear ever to be successful. If we remain true to God's calling for us, there will be people who will be changed for the good by observing us. And that gives me hope and gives you hope. I hope that you see it that way. And gives us all a reason to be faithful. God is able to deliver us from whatever. It can be terrible illness. It can be all sorts of things. But he doesn't always. And sometimes it's because we are in a type 3 narrative, and how we suffer, and perhaps even how we die, will be a witness that will change the lives of others for eternity.